Well, good afternoon. Happy Friday, February 2nd. Mark Milam here. Let's get right to it. Really a great week for mortgage interest rates until we got to today. And today was the day that I was a little bit concerned about as we moved through the week. Now, the Fed had their regularly scheduled FOMC, Federal Open Market Committee meeting on Wednesday at 2 p.m. It was widely expected that the Fed was going to leave the Fed funds rate unchanged at 5.5%. That's exactly what they did. The Fed's message was a little more hawkish than the markets anticipated, but largely the bond market shrugged it off and mortgage rates actually improved on the day, and they improved again yesterday as well. So what happened today that caused us to give all of that improvement back? Let me flip the screen around here and we'll walk through it. This is the past 5 business days. You can see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, really excellent days as it pertains to mortgage interest rates. Thursday, a little flat there Thursday, and this is today basically giving back all of the improvement that we got in the first 3 business days of the week. Why did this happen? Let's scroll down and take a look at the reports. So really the big reason why we gave back all of those improvements was right here. It's a jobs report. This is non-farm payrolls coming in at almost double consensus estimates. We thought we would add about 180,000 jobs over the past 30 days. We added 353,000 jobs. That's not what the Fed wants to see. The Fed has been very vocal about their intent to bring pain to the labor market and drive up unemployment. Unemployment actually went down to 3.7% with this non-farm payrolls number, and we've seen average hourly earnings tick up as well. The Fed's particularly concerned about this because presumably if folks are earning more, they're spending more. That's not good for inflation. But if we look back earlier in the week, we can see jobless claims were up a little bit, which seems a bit contradictory. Unit labor costs were down. And you can see back here on Wednesday that the Fed left the Fed funds rate unchanged at 5.5%. And I want to pay close attention to this language because the Fed's policy statement mentioned circumstances for eventually changing rates and that the Fed needs, quote, greater confidence that the economy is moving to 2%. So take that in for a second. The Fed is looking for greater confidence, greater data, more consistent data that the economy or inflation is moving closer to 2%. I think that's a really important point to note because back in the fall of 2022, what the Fed told us is they were on the fastest Fed rate hiking spree in the modern history. What they told us was we really need to keep the Fed funds rate in line with core PCE. That's personal consumption expenditures. Core means we're stripping out volatile food and energy. And the Fed funds rate is actually well ahead of core PCE in largely restrictive territory. If you go and look at core PCE and you look at it month over month, this is personal consumption expenditures, core month over month, you can see that since July, we've gone up 0.1, 0.1, 0.3, 0.1, 0.1, 0.2. So in the past 6 months, we're at 0.9% for core PCE. If you annualize 0.9% in 6 months, you get 1.8% in a year. So if the Fed's target rate is 2% and annualized core PCE is at 1.8%, should that not be giving you the confidence you need to take a less restrictive stance with economic policy? That's the question that the Fed got asked. In fact, they got asked a specific question about when do you start cutting so you don't drive the economy into a severe recession and cause unnecessary pain. Back in December of 2023, Mr. Powell said that he expects the Fed to begin cutting rates well before inflation fell all the way to 2%. In a December news conference, he said, quote, I'm quoting the Fed chairman Jerome Powell. He says, the reason you wouldn't want to wait until we get to 2% to cut rates is that policy would be too late. Wait too long and the Fed would overshoot, he said, because it takes a while for policy to get into the economy after economic activity and affect inflation. Wait a second. So about 30 days ago, our Federal Reserve chairman said, you don't want to wait till you get to 2% to start cutting rates because you'll likely overshoot. That's kind of like the airplane descending towards the runway and the captain doesn't flare the nose and just hits the earth, right? Nose down. That's too late. You're going to get the job done, but you're going to do a lot of damage along the way. You want to have a soft landing, or at least a softer landing. The Fed themselves said this about 30 days ago. Yet this week, they say exactly the opposite, that they don't have the confidence, even though the numbers suggest that annualized core PCE is now sub 2%. As part of the press conference after the Fed's announcement today, there was a question asked to the Federal Reserve Chairman and says, hey, if you don't have the confidence now, you're stating you don't have the confidence now on January the 31st, 2024, that you're on your track to meet the Fed's goal of 2% annualized inflation, what would give you the confidence? And that's the million-dollar question, and Jerome Powell failed to answer. He said, quote, I'm not in a position to put a number on it. Folks, I'm going to scratch the record. I'm going to screech the tires. I'm going to throw a rock at the window here for a second. If the Fed chairman is not in a position to put a number on it, who is? It's their stated goal to get to 2%. So if the data tells us that we're already annualized at 2%, if the data says that, hey, 30 days ago, you told us that you don't want to overshoot, and now you're stating that you're not in a position to put a number on what would give you the confidence to begin cutting rates, what are we left to think? So this is a complete and utter failure of economic policy in America, and you are watching it unfold in front of your eyes. There is no doubt in my mind, I've seen enough to know we're no longer really even talking about inflation in this country when it comes to interest rates. We're talking about labor. Labor is all that matters to the Fed, and until labor breaks, until the Fed takes the airplane and noses it into the ground, they are not going to do anything else. That much was made clear to us today, and unfortunately, those of us specifically sensitive to interest rates, I'm talking about housing, I'm talking about commercial real estate, I'm talking about the residential lending environment and the commercial lending environment, those of us in those markets are going to continue to pay the price, and home ownership affordability will be directly impacted by the actions of our Fed. If I can be of any service to you over the weekend, don't hesitate to reach out, mark.milam@highlandmtg.com.